Hey guys, CM back with another tank review. This is actually a re-recording. I actually did record this last night, but yeah, audio problems when recording because of an update that for some reason my OBS didn't download until today. Well, I say that today was like midnight last night that I recorded this. That was actually quite a few weeks old, so you know, feels amazing, man. But yeah, since I've been playing the SU-85 and SU-85 recently, I actually 3-marked the SU-85 a couple of days ago, and now I've moved on to the SU-85. I figured I would do a couple of review videos so then you guys get a comparison between the two. I'll be starting with the SU-85, and at the end of the SU-85I I'll be starting with, and at the end of the SU-85 video I'll have a comparison between the two so you can see directly the differences between both as a kind of final conclusion sort of thing. So the SU-85I here, tier 5 Russian premium tank destroyer. As the name suggests, you do get an 85mm, and in this case the tank is based on the Panzer III hull. Captured Panzer III with a superstructure on top in place of the turret. Does keep the cupola and has of course a big 85mm gun and a rather large gun mantlet. So armor wise, you don't really have any, of course. You've got 50mm on the lower plate and this little part here, 55mm with some extra tracks there. You're not really going to bounce anything with this, unless you know it's at an auto bounce or something like that. So yeah, 60mm here with some 70mm patches here and here above the hatches. Again, you're not really going to bounce anything there either unless, you know, you're like this. Same with your superstructure, that's 45mm there, so yeah, once again, you've not got a lot. Cupola has 90mm across the center and 30 on the top, so again, not particularly effective. And the gun mantlet is the only place that you're really going to bounce anything with this tank, because it does have some areas that are pretty strong against same and definitely lower tier and some higher tier vehicles as well. As you can see in some places, if you get lucky, then they can quite easily bounce. Your sides are 30mm on the hull, and on the side of the superstructure you've got a tiny bar of 40mm, and then the rest is 25. So 76mm guns and up will overmatch that. So keep that in mind. Rear, of course, 50mm, and of course the rest of the superstructure is 25. So yeah, not really any armor to speak about. So let's move on to the rest of the stats, starting with the gun. 85mm D5S 85A. It is a pretty high DPM gun for the tier. However, your pen is quite low for a tank destroyer. You only have 119mm of AP pen and 161 of APCR for 160 alpha. You've got 43mm of HE pen for 280. Your base reload is 13.33 rounds a minute for 4.5 seconds reload time. This is pretty good. However, that pen is rather awkward because that 119mm will at times struggle to deal with things like KV-1s. Definitely will struggle with the front of an OI experimental, and a lot of tier 6 heavies you can just forget about firing the AP. So keep that in mind, and especially considering that your average matchmaking is tier 6. So keeping that in mind, you will find that you might be reaching for the APCR a bit. Now moving on to what I feel is actually the worst part about the gun. For the most part, it's not bad, it's workable, albeit in some situations you will have to fire quite a bit of APCR. The worst part is the dispersion, by far. For an 85mm, even on a tier 5 tank destroyer, this is horrendous. 0.42 base dispersion before any equipment or crew skills or anything is very bad. We're talking almost 122mm IS gun levels of derpiness here, and that is pretty damn bad. Sure, it gets a 2.3 second aiming time, and on traversing the gun left to right when you're stationary, it's not bad, but you'll often find that you'll be kind of disappointed with how inaccurate this gun is. And to add to this, the shell velocity is actually quite mediocre at 800 meters per second on the AP. So, yeah, you're going to find that your long-range shots are not particularly accurate. And hitting some weak spots, like cupolas and stuff, is not ideal. So, yeah, you're going to find it quite awkward there. The APCR does get better shell velocity of 1,000 meters a second, but again, you're paying 2,800 credits for that. Moving on to the mobility, it's decent. It's nothing special. 50 kilometers an hour top speed isn't bad. 14 kilometers an hour reverse speed is not too bad either. Only 300 horsepower engine though, so with all equipment on it, it'll come down from 13.4 to pretty much dead on 13. It does, however, turn very quickly. This base tank traverse of 48 degrees a second, that is very good. And these effective traverse, they're relatively accurate. You'll find that oftentimes if you're trying to reacquire a target, you can do so very quickly. So that's one of the kind of redeeming factors to make up for the kind of lackluster gun in some aspects. And moving on to your gun elevation and depression, I'm skipping terrain resistance because you're not really going to notice this most of the time. Because honestly, unless you're on soft ground, you're really not going to see a difference. So, yeah. Moving on to elevation and depression. 25 degrees of elevation, 5 gun depression. Very much a Russian style tank there. 10 degrees left to right of gun traverse, which is workable. Not the best. Definitely not the worst. Enough to work with. You get 380 hit points on this vehicle, which is not bad for a tier 5 tank destroyer. And now we get on to a part that is quite frustrating with this tank, and that is the engine health. This tank will get its engine knocked out very easily. In fact, it's got less health than the tracks. So you're actually more likely to lose your engine than you are your tracks with this tank to a single shot. Especially when you consider that this tank, having the transmission in the front like a lot of German tanks, will get frontal engine damage. So keep that in mind as well. That is one thing about this tank that will frustrate you. One part though that's not too bad is the view range. 330 meters base means that if you're running vents and binos along with your premium food and your crew skills, so your 2 view range skills and your brothers in arms, you can reach a fairly respectable 460 meters view range with your binos, which isn't too bad for a tier 5. It's nothing amazing, but it's definitely something you can work with. As for spotting for yourself, you still don't want to be doing that, because that does put you in quite a risk, but in some cases you'll find that you can do it without too much trouble. Okay, so moving on to the replay. Here we are on Prokhorovka. It's a tier 6 match. 5-10 matchmaking. And we get the north spawn. So we know that there's not going to be a whole lot of view range on either team here, so I figure that instead of sitting in a more reserved spot like I normally would in a large clump of bushes on C2, B2 area, I'm going to be a bit more aggressive and get myself onto C1. In fact, we're going to be the stereotypical tank destroyer player, redline sniping, but not quite as far back as our Skoda T24 there. As you can see, he's lurking on A1. We're going to be a bit more useful than that, to say the least. And in fact, our T14's in not a bad position for sniping, but, well, again, low tiers, it's not exactly going to be useful. So, both enemy light tanks, we sit them in the middle. And so they're doing the standard active scout thing of derping around the middle like a headless chicken, trying to get spots off like that. And we know that the ELC has poor base view range, so we try and shoot him, and then the Leopard we see he's tracked, we finish him off. Even though the Leopard's quite a big target there, you could see that there are quite a few parts of the reticle that would have easily missed that thing. And you will see in this replay the shell velocity of the AP come into effect. Meanwhile, our Skoda has finally moved up. He's realised that maybe sitting on A1 wasn't the most useful thing to do. So ELC pops up again. He's trying to take your YOLO 90mm shots at the T50, hoping to take him down, and we reload our next shot, and we get pretty lucky here when he pops back up, because we have to swing our gun to the left, and there it goes right into the tracks, and there goes the ELC. So that's very important for this match, because that means they lose quite a bit of their view range right at the start. And they've also lost a KV-1S as well. Looks like he died further down on the map. Meanwhile, the M44 takes down our T50. A bit unfortunate, but we do still have another one, as you can see to the right there, on the E1. Now just moving up, we've not been spotted since those light tanks disappeared. We're waiting for the T50 to see if there's anything further down as he moves up. And then realizing he's not seen anything, I feel it's time to move a bit further to the left, so then if there's anything further back on J1 or K1, we at least have some sort of a shot on it. And there's the M44. All on his lonesome. And you'll see here that a lot of tanks will be able to get these shots off that I'm trying, just to loop those shots over the ridge there. I guarantee the normal SU-85, I would have hit at least one of those. But that .42 dispersion is a bit of a problem in this tank, as you can see. And you're going to keep seeing it throughout the rest of this replay, because we're going to have some fully aimed shots that are a bit disappointing in where they go. So we're getting our binos up there. We spot the Panzer T25, and the Skoda spots the Bishop. But we want to try and take down the Panzer first, because of course it's quite a mobile tank, and we don't want the chance that he'll try and YOLO spot people. So second shot, blind shot goes in. First shot misses, because I expect him to go further forward than he did. Now we focus on the Bishop while the Panzer is unspotted, and we take him down. One less arty is always useful, because of course you don't want people being able to fire over cover at you. So we're just waiting for the Panzer T25 or the T-3485M to be spotted. Waiting for our T50 and our own T-3485 to move in. And the T50 is going to just poke over that ridge there any second now. And he spots the Grilla and the T-3485M. I decide, well, I feel like having a Pascucci's, so I go for the Grilla. And we get a lucky high roll there. Of course, this gun being 160 Alpha, that was a 50-50 chance to not kill the Grilla. And here's actually where the pen with AP comes to be a problem. T-3485Ms, huge problem for this gun, because that 75mm upper plate is going to be very troll. And here you see the accuracy actually. Fully aimed shots going into the tracks rather than, you know, the rather large side of the Panzer T25 hull. But we do get the last couple of shots on him to pick up our fourth kill. I decide that I think I can get lucky with that shot under the train. Doesn't go anywhere. Our RT actually makes him rock backwards, so that shot misses. And then last one, we get very lucky, because that had to go into the gun mantlet. There was no other place for it to pen reliably on the front of the T-3485M. It had to be one of the two armor holes in the gun mantlet to the left or right of the gun. So now I'm looking for shots on the Hellcat, and here we actually get very unlucky once again. Well, maybe a little bit of both. Bit lucky, bit unlucky. Unlucky, we hit the gun mantlet and it doesn't pen, because that was part of the gun mantlet that was facing away, so it just passes through the gun mantlet and doesn't actually enter the tank. So that counts as a ricochet. So a little unlucky there. That's not so much down to the gun, but that's more down to the angle that we ended up hitting the gun mantlet of the Hellcat at. Looking for another shot here. This time his turret is facing this way, kind of. And so we're just waiting for him to poke again against the T-14. And we once again get a little bit lucky and unlucky. That, funnily enough, hit the gun mantlet. Again, but that hit a part of the gun mantlet that also covers the rest of the turret, so those two plates combined give it just enough effective armor to stop that shell from penning. So a bit unlucky there. And now we're just moving over to the left here, well, to our left. That's further north on the map. So then we get a better angle to move towards the hill and try to spot and engage the T-67 and KV-1 without them spotting us in return. The Hellcat meanwhile has tried to run away from the T-14 since the KV-1 was getting shots on him from our team. We see the KV-1 has been spotted by the KV-85. We put a shot in, and our friendly KV-85, using the 122mm, takes off a large chunk of his health as well. So now just looking for the T-67 as well. The KV-1 has gone to ground. He's gotten himself into a bit of a dip there. Hellcat gets spotted, taken out by the KV-1. So we're just trying to move into a position here to try and re-spot that KV-1, try and spot the T-67. And waiting for the binos here to kick in, nothing comes up. So I decide to move further to the left, and just as I do that, the T-67 pops up and YOLOs a shot into our KV-85 to finish him off. And we get very lucky here with that APCR shot into his side. Completely unaimed, completely RNG. We got very lucky there. Also, the APCR is loaded for the KV-1 because, like I say, that 119mm AP shell, that pen is not going to be particularly good against the front or even turret of the KV-1, and more likely we're going to get a turret shot than a hull shot. So we see the T-67. We knew he was going to try and go for RT, so we're going to just try and finish him off here. And we get lucky again, because he hits our hull side, not superstructure side, at an auto bounce angle, so we finish him off. Because he lost all momentum, so he could not circle us at all. Which gave us plenty of time, since he had no momentum, for us to turn and re-engage. And the enemy KV-1 pops up once again, and we just loop our APCR shell into his face, securing our 7th kill. And that was actually only a first class. I still figured that this was a good enough replay to put up because it did show the kind of gameplay that you want to be doing with this tank. You want to be... You don't really want to be upfront. It's not the kind of TD where you can be somewhat risky because, of course, you've got no armor, and you don't have the best view range, and you don't have... Well, you do have some mobility, it's not great. This tank kind of relies on a combination of its size, relatively small size, and its okayish mobility to get itself out of trouble if it does get spotted. So, we got ourselves our Pascucci's medal and Top Gun, as well as that first class. We got 1817 damage, 7 kills, and 953 base XP. Made ourselves a little profit, but that was purely down to the boosts from the Halloween event. You will not be making any credits with this tank, ever, in normal circumstances, even with your standard equipment, because you'll often, like I say, you'll often find yourself in situations where you have to fire that APCR against things like OIs, both the tier 5 and tier 6, and if you see an ONI, if you somehow get into tier 7, you can basically just go fuck yourself, because, yeah, that 161 pen, not gonna do anything for you. So, yeah, don't expect this to make any credits. Your tier 5 premiums generally don't. It is not the worst crew trainer, but again, if you want a crew trainer for your Russian TDs, you want to get yourself an SU-122-44. It'll stand you in better stead because it's got a more reliable gun. Sure, it can see tier 9, but it's still got good camo, good mobility. Like I say, it's got a good gun. Not the most accurate once again, but that 122mm is fairly solid and has still ridiculous DPM. So bear that in mind. And also the SU-122-44 does have kind of troll armor. So there you go. The SU-85I. Little tier 5 Russian crew trainer more than credit maker. Would I recommend buying this tank? Not really. Is it an interesting tank, however? Absolutely, because, well, to be honest, it gives you... It's not really anything special in terms of gameplay, but not anything unique there, but it does, at least offer you an interesting tank history-wise, because, of course, these did exist. As did the 76mm version, where they were captured by the Russians throughout the war and converted to be used as tank... well, not so much tank destroyers, but self-propelled guns in some form. Be they for destroying tanks or otherwise. But anyway, that's this review done with. I will be doing the SU-85 review again, because of course audio issues mean re-recording, hooray. That'll be up fairly shortly. I'll be uploading that while I'll be uploading that straight after I re-record it, and this one will be going up while I'm re-recording the SU-85 one, so watch out for that. I will leave a link after both have uploaded in the description, so then you guys can go to and from. I would recommend watching this one first and then going to the SU-85 one, because I will be doing a side-by-side comparison at the end of that video. Anyway guys, that's all from me on this one. I'll catch you on the next one.